Hello. Let me get us a gallery view going. There we go. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy New Year. Welcome to Low Country Autism Foundation's live community conversations. I'm Sophia Towns. I'm program coordinator for the Low Country Autism Foundation. And today we have a special guest. We have my friend Becky Peters with ARC of South Carolina Case Management. And she is here to basically teach us all about respite care. And it's a subject that I think many families don't really know about. They just assume that it's going to be too difficult to get. I'll be honest, I've never applied for it because I don't know how. I don't know how to even go about doing that. For those of you that are new, I myself have two little boys with autism, moderate to severe. So I myself am very interested in respite care and how we can go about doing that. So Becky, I'm going to turn it over to you. And everyone, if you have any questions, please plug those into the comments and we will get those answered for you. Okay?
Great. Thank you for having me. And I'm happy to be here and spread the word about respite services because I know that is such a need. And I feel like it was a need prior to last March, but I think the need has quadrupled for families from what I'm seeing. And it's just so important for us to, get the word out to make sure everyone knows about respite opportunities that are happening. Or that you can access even. One of the things I think that Sophia, I don't even think I put this on our small agenda, but where do you find caregivers? Because the things that I'm going to talk about are the ways we pay for the caregivers, right? Which is not always the problem. It's how do you find these caregivers? So we have to be really, really creative. And, obviously you're looking in your small circle of support. I have seen families do trade-offs with respite caregiving. I love that idea because I think families get other families and nothing really raises their eyebrow too much when it comes to autism or whatever the disability is. I love that idea. We as case management providers do not recommend. We can certainly connect families. If two families were in agreement to connect, that is also something I've had families do. Hey, do you know another family that needs, someone and that we could do this with? So we're connectors if that's the case. I've had families look at their school, for the aides in the classrooms. They're always looking for stuff to do over the summer. They've got their summers and their vacations off. And if they already know your child, that's an excellent resource. Churches always have some youth group opportunities, some service stuff. They might even have a special needs program where some of the Sunday school teachers might be interested in that. The YMCA is also another place. I know our local YMCA will serve and allow our kids with autism to come into our program and any ability really come into the program. They deal with a lot there. So, some of those kids that are 18 and up, as far as that goes, I've seen the most success, I should say, with families that actually hire, actually interview and hire on their own. So some of our waiver funds, and we'll get there, but some of that funding requires that formal piece of hiring. And so I've seen families go on care.com. But they've sifted through, guys. They haven't, not everybody on care.com is going to be a good fit. But they've actually I've seen families run ads, over, different platforms, whether I'll tell my age here, but the newspaper, things like that, even local newspapers putting up a little tear off at the gym. I've seen families do that and have success. I think that when we're talking about funding this service, which is just giving you guys a break from the constant care that your loved one requires, whether it's a child, whether it's a young adult, whether it's an older adult. I've been dealing with some 47 and 57-year-olds today, and they're fabulous, but sometimes you just need a break from that as well. So whatever that looks like, when we're bringing in funding, the most successful families have actually gone and done the footwork for their caregiver. So I kind of wanted to lead with that because I know that that is typically, the problem that I find with families. We've got this funding, but we don't have anyone to provide it. And I
Yeah.
will just say your case manager should be assisting, helping you brainstorm, folks. I mean, when you're in that overwhelmed state, in that need of respite, you might not be thinking about everybody, or thinking outside the box. So use those tools, use that case manager as a sounding board and say, hey, can you help me figure out who I might know or who I might be able to get, and then we can collectively think outside the box to meet that need. Because just to be quite honest, like I've said, that sometimes is more of a need than the funding.
Okay. So the funding is there. It's really the issue is finding good people to be the caregiver. Yeah.
Do you guys agree with that? I mean, does anybody have any questions, any thoughts? I mean, that's what, in my experience, my heart goes out because it's like there's no one, or a family moves here and they're isolated and they know no one, and I think that's just kudos to this group of connections, just being able to be plugged in to get to know people in similar situations.
Definitely. So as far as finding a caregiver, which is going to be challenging, but we can use our case manager who can help us. We can reach out to other families that we might know, other special needs families who may be interested in doing, a switch off. I take care of their child with special needs. They take care of my child with special needs when I need a break. You mentioned YMCA, the aides in the classrooms, the paraprofessionals. I think that's a really awesome idea, especially in the summertime. I'm sure they're looking for work. Churches, youth groups. What about specific providers for respite? I do hear talk about certain organizations are a respite provider.
Right. And
what
that
does that
a
really
great
mean?
segue into the funding, the types of funding that you can receive for respite. So the way that families are going to be able to receive and use the most respite and the most consistent respite is going to be funded through your waivers, your community supports waiver and your IDRD waiver. Respite is a category within those waivers. And so that allows the funding to be provided for that service. Typically what happens, it is really based on need. We case managers will come and do an assessment, and based on the need there, and needs look like, what are their personal care needs, what are their daily living needs, and then how stressed out is the family. There's a caregiver assessment now that we've implemented to talk about how stressed is that family, and that all adds up into these points that spits out this number of hours per month that a family can qualify for. Now, do you need to ask for the max if that's not what you need? No. And can you ask for more if you're assessed at a lower rate? Absolutely. Okay. Again, when I say based on need, I mean based on need. And during this pandemic, DDSN has allowed families to receive a whole lot more respite than maybe was first assessed, a year or two ago. So that has been a really, really good thing. The funding is there. I encourage everyone to talk with their case manager about their wait list number. Where are you on the wait list? And then, guys, I'm going to say it again because I don't think that I can say it enough. If it gets to the point where you are so down and out and you think, I cannot do this anymore, I do not have any help, I'm a single parent, I can't do it. You call that case manager and you tell them that. Don't be embarrassed about it. Don't be ashamed, because that's what the case manager needs to hear in order to jump the wait list. That's critical. And right now we've had more critical situations than we ever have before. So even though you're 15 million, and I'm not kidding, almost 15,000 is probably more, but don't let that number, discourage you from being, number one, honest about where you are and how you're feeling, because it's a lot to
Okay.
do what you guys do in a day, and your
Sure.
normal is not the normal.
Yeah.
It is not necessarily, you get so used to caregiving and giving and being and doing, that your normal becomes this thing that's this huge thing, and that's where, case management can come in and just really be a sounding board and saying, you know what, but that's not okay. That's not normal. We need to get you some help.
Right, right. So I think a lot of families, myself included, once we are put on the waiver lists, and I do want us to take maybe a couple of minutes for those who missed your first presentation on the waivers and all of that stuff and general case management. So when we're on that waiver list, we get that letter in the mail, and you're like number, I don't know, 12,000. For
Right.
example, right?
Right.
And so my first thought is, well, maybe when my boys are 25, I'll qualify for something. So that's
Right.
the initial thought. And then you tuck it away into their file, and there you have it.
Right.
So you're saying, with the case manager, and for those of you who do not have case management, I am here to tell you, do it. And we'll get you Becky's contact information. You need case management. But you can, all I have to do is call you and say, I'm about to lose it.
That's right.
And I need help.
Mhm.
And especially during this pandemic, it's been very hard for special needs families. So you're saying we can literally jump the list to get some help. Okay. Well, that's great.
Yes, absolutely. And that comes in, I've had families say it's critical and then them not want to really share. And that's when it becomes, you really need to be comfortable with your case manager. You really need to have that relationship. And if you don't have the right one, then get the right one, tell somebody, because that's where it just really becomes the service that you can use and benefit from. Because I had a sweet family that did not know me. They didn't want to tell me, really, because it's fear, it's, all these emotions going on, and then you're tired and you're exhausted and all this. Unless I know, I can't jump the list. I can't give DDSN that information that will allow a reserve capacity waiver slot to come your way and help you out.
Okay.
So that's just another thing. And if you don't know who your case manager is, again, you can certainly call me. You can shoot me an email. I can't see anything about your child at all if they're not with the ARC, but I could tell you which agency to contact for services.
Okay.
So,
Okay. We do have a question, Becky. A family is asking for the actual definition of respite and the age that it covers. So are we talking, would my boys, ages 4 and 9, would that be possible? Or is respite just for adults? This family has an 18-year-old.
yeah. So the way the Department of Disabilities looks at it as they use the number 12, but it's very loose. Okay. So yes, do we have young fellows and ladies getting it 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old? Yeah, we do. We do
Okay.
have those folks, because what we do and what we get, the information we tug out of you guys is, how do they look different from their peer at 7 or 5. And typically there's enough information there that would justify the need for the respite. Because we know, I mean, even, some 10-year-olds are able to stay at home by themselves. There are some kids that can do that. Well, one of our kids with autism cannot do that, so even though they're not 12, depending, and I shouldn't say that because it's generally speaking, let's say, we still need some support for our guys that are under 12 years old. So if you hear the number 12, say, okay, I've heard that before, but that's not the rule. They're not going to tell you no if you're asking for a 7 or 8-year-old. You just have to justify the need. When we justify the need, we can get things that we need.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So with a couple of the other respite categories that I'm going to talk about, you still need to justify it, but probably not as much as in that waiver category, right? That waiver category, you have to have that formal caregiver. You have to get them certified and do a couple of little things, background checks, first aid, things like that, to ensure that the waiver dollars are going to someone who has met the criteria. Right?
Okay. No, you're fine.
So yeah. So the ages, and then what is the definition? The definition is giving you a break. It is not necessarily personal care aid, right? So we can sometimes have families get confused and say, well, my respite caregiver isn't doing the laundry. Well, that's not in the definition of respite, right? Definition of respite is strictly caregiving, giving that primary caregiver a break from the constant care. Now, could you find a gym and get them to pick up toys or make meals, things like that, or do a load of the child's laundry? Sure, or the young adult's laundry, but that is not in the definition. That is in the definition of personal care aid. Okay.
So that's a completely different thing, a personal care aid and a respite care giver. Okay.
The way they overlap is obviously your respite caregiver may feed your young adult or child lunch. They may make them a sandwich, right? That's also a personal care daily living task, right? Supervision. Well, your personal care aide is going to be supervising, right? But they also have to be actively doing something else. Respite is supervision. Respite is keeping them from climbing the walls and being safe, keeping them safe while you're gone.
Okay. Toileting, if the individual needs assistance, is that things like that, changing diapers?
That is expected of a respite caregiver, no matter what the age, if that is a one of those things that has to happen. Transportation can happen in that respite category, right? If you need to take, the respite caregiver is going to take them to a therapy and drop them off for you or something like that. That is respite caregiving. What I will say about personal care for children's personal care, that is iffy. It depends on the agency. And if you have personal care, that's something that you want to ask the agency. Do they do transportation or not?
Sure.
I've heard
sorry. I'm sorry, Becky. I have another question from a family. How do you go about getting a case manager? How do you do that?
So the first step is the initial screening to the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs. And that, Sophia, did you put that on the Facebook page from our last talk, the link?
I think it's on there.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Right. So you screen in to the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, and then you are offered a choice of intake provider. So you have to come into the system if you've not already been there. So you come in through an intake provider. That intake provider gathers a bunch of paperwork and helps you through the eligibility process for Department of Disabilities and Special Needs. Once that eligibility is in place, you can then be offered a choice of case management provider. And every county probably has 2 or 3 case management providers, if not more than that.
Okay. Okay. And if you're not happy with your current
Right.
case manager, how do you go about switching?
So a couple of things you could do. You don't have to go through the intake because you're already into case management. So that's not something that you necessarily call DDS in for to screen in. You would either tell your current case manager, right? Hey, I'm not happy. You could call that person's supervisor and say, my needs aren't being met. I haven't heard from them. Or you could call the case management provider that you want to move to, and that provider could handle all the back, uncomfortableness with the other case management agency. One thing, just from being at two case management agencies, I do appreciate when a family would tell me if a case manager is not doing what they need to do, because it's not necessarily a sign that they don't want to or their heart isn't there. It might be a sign they're overwhelmed, they can't get to families, the workload is a lot and you might have critical situations. There might be a couple of reasons why. And so I always like to suggest to families, make sure you contact someone at that agency just to make sure there's not something else going on. They're not out sick. There's not one case management agency that can get more than another. So hopping from agency to agency is not going to change the benefits that you're eligible for. Okay. We are all equal across the board. So, you just want to make sure that whatever issue you're having at your current case management agency can't be fixed there.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Great. Thank you. So going back to the respite, I think we were talking about funding through the waivers.
Right.
And then what else? How else can we do
So
it?
I want to say 2 more things
Go
about
ahead.
respite through the waivers, and then we're going to move on to some lighter topics for funding. There are 2 ways that parents, let me say this, let me back up. There is one way that a parent can get paid for respite, okay, through the waiver. And that is a parent who does not reside in the home with someone who is over 18 and receives waiver respite. Okay, does that make sense? So anyone in the home that is a parent or a step parent cannot provide respite.
Okay.
Now, I do want to just make this distinction. I don't want to go there because it's a different topic. It's a little bit different for personal care aid. And if anybody has a question about that, I can answer it, over email or call me or something like that. I just don't want to confuse the two because it is a little bit different for that. The other person that can provide waiver respite is somebody that's not legally responsible, like an aunt, a sister, an uncle, grandma. They can all do that waiver respite.
Okay.
Typically, they're doing it already, is what we've seen a whole lot of over this past year. Grandma's taking the child anyway, or the young adult to do things. There is funding for that through the waivers.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to toss one more nugget. When you're thinking about guardianship around age 17, remember that piece, right? So if both parents become guardians, that might eliminate being able to be paid for some caregiving services.
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, anybody with specific questions, call me and we can talk through that, because there's a couple of little ways to go there.
Yeah.
Okay?
Wow.
But it is something to consider when you're thinking about guardianship around age 17 for 18.
Okay. So probably they need to be calling and looking into that, maybe start around 16, you think?
So the decision needs to be made at 18.
18.
Or your child's going to be signing their own forms at IEP meetings, at the doctors. Yeah. Yeah. So 17 is kind of, I mean, absolutely start thinking about it whenever, because I know our families like to plan ahead
Sure.
and gather as much information, but really transition like into adulthood actually starts at 13 through the school. You should start thinking about that sort of, I know it's like a blink, though it goes like a blink. I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Anytime you're ready to start talking about it, you can.
Not today.
Not today, not today. That's right, not today. Okay, so moving on from the waiver respite. So that is when you get your number, make sure you're on the list with your case manager. It comes up. All of that is kind of that formal piece of respite. If you do not have a waiver, your agency, the county board or the case management agency, is provided with a pot of money that's called family arranged respite funds. Okay. There's no income requirement. There's no going back to that age, as long as there's no age requirement, as long as it's justified as a need. Basically, and where they're coming from with that is, a 3-year-old needs a babysitter regardless, right?
Right.
But when you start getting 5 or so, the supervision level, can you step out of the room for 5 or 10 minutes with a 5-year-old?
Right.
Typically, maybe, and maybe you can't with your, so it really depends on the child and the situation as far as the supervision level. So with family arranged, there's not that age requirement. It's just a justification, and it's a need. It's need-based as well. We have families that maybe are in a critical situation waiting on that waiver, but they found someone that can help them. So we're right now going to give them some family arranged respite money to pay that person to help them out while they're in this critical time. The issue with it is it's not regular and it can't be ongoing. So, and it's only a temporary amount because we only get a small lump sum for all the thousands of families we serve. Now, this money is not for those folks that have a waiver. So that knocks out a good bit of folks right there. It is only for the folks that are non-waiver. And that's because obviously the waivers have that category. So we're not going to allow those waiver folks to access our family support funds for respite.
Okay. That makes sense.
So the way that you get that again is through your case management provider, whether at the board or a private provider. You call them, you say, hey, I've got this person, but it's Christmas and things are tight, or it's January and it was Christmas and things are tight. And I really need to get a few doctor's appointments done. And I need somebody to, I need the reimbursement for that childcare. So that is an excellent thing to utilize. Again, we've seen, typically I see respite requests around 20 hours a month, 25 hours a month. Sometimes families say, I want a date night with my husband every Saturday night, and right now things are tight. So give me 16 hours, 2 Saturday days or something per month. It is asked for on a monthly basis. And again, I don't know that any agency has a real set. If you get it in March, you can't get it in April, but you can get it, anything like that. Again, just talk about what the need is, because that's what we're looking at. That's where we need to focus. So so you apply as a parent. The respite happens. If you can work it out with your caregiver to hold on the payment, that works. And then you get cut a check for that amount of respite that you've provided.
Okay. I have a question, Becky. When you have more than one child with a disability, what does that look like? Would I be then trying to find 2 caregivers, or do we lump it together? And then what about the neurotypical siblings, the siblings without a disability?
Right.
Do I then need to look for another babysitter for them? How would that work?
Excellent question. So with the waivers, you can use the same caregiver if both boys were on a waiver, but you just make sure their times are separate.
Okay.
You know, and I'll tell you the truth with the family arranged, if your third child is in there and you supplement that respite caregiver, that's on you. It's family arranged. We're going
Gotcha.
to give your boys, if you ask for 10 hours, we'll give one boy 10 and we'll give the other boy 10. Make sure that the times are split if you can,
Mhm.
and use it doubly. And if you have to, supplement again for another child, that's on you guys. We don't even need to know about that. That's a family arranged. Now,
Okay.
with the waiver,
Mhm.
that's a whole nother set of rules and regulations.
Sure.
You would not want your respite caregiver. Again, if you worked out something that was completely different, but with waiver, it is that formal caregiver hire piece. And actually, we didn't even talk about it. And I'm so sorry. I'll circle back around to it. The agencies that provide respite,
Oh,
those
yes.
are only for our waiver respite, only
Those
for waiver.
only waiver.
Only
Waiver
waiver. If you
only.
called up all caregivers and said, I need a respite worker, they would want your waiver authorization. They're
Okay.
not going to be of any value outside of a waiver.
Okay. But if you're on the waiver, but again, you're number 10,000,
Mm-hmm.
and I call you and I say, I got to have a break. I've got to have a break. Then you or myself, then like if I can go to the front of the line, then is that who I contact, an agency to provide that service?
So with the waiver respite, you could do it either way. You can use an agency or you can hire your own.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
either way you go. And again, I'll go back and stress what I said. The most success is when you hire your own. Now, if you had someone and didn't feel like doing all the paperwork piece of getting them through, you could send that person over to an agency. The difference is pay, right? The person that works at the agency is going to get paid less than the person that you hire.
Gotcha.
And we're talking about quality. You know what that means,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah. Do
For the
we know
most
what the current reimbursement rate is for a respite caregiver?
around $11 an hour if you do it in this way that you do it separately.
Okay.
Agencies, guys, they're paying $7 and $8 an hour. Yeah, it's really sad because it's a hard job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So again, all that pertains to waiver.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Got it.
Family arranged, you choose, you decide the hours, we give you the reimbursement, we're all good.
Okay.
Request it as you need to, supplement as you need to, use the neighbor across the street if you need to, all of those things. Any questions about that family arranged piece for folks that do not have a waiver?
I think we're
It's a
good.
fairly simple thing to do.
Yeah. And again, people, if you have any questions, please go ahead and your questions in our comment section, and we'll get those answered.
Yeah.
So don't be shy. Okay. What else, Miss Becky?
The Respite Coalition, guys. There is a Respite Coalition that is statewide. It is an agency that can provide you with a $500 voucher for respite services twice a year. Okay, I put the application on here. Actually, Sophie, are you going to be able to post my links and things from our thing? Okay,
Most definitely.
So you guys will have that link. You apply for it. Again, there is a paperwork piece when you're getting money. As you can imagine, there's going to be that few pieces of paper to fill out. There is a portion that either your case manager or your doctor needs to do on the application. But after that, it's fairly simple. And you turn in timesheets, and the Respite Coalition reimburses up to $500 twice a year. So when summer camps were happening, guys, for our folks that weren't on waivers, and actually they will actually give money if it's justified to someone on a waiver as well. So I should say that if you do have a waiver and you still need over and above what you're getting through the waiver, you can apply for the Respite Coalition voucher.
Okay.
Okay. But during the summer months that we had summer camps, families were able to utilize that $500 to pay for some summer camps because it was respite. It was so the family could go to work during the summer. So that's an excellent resource as you're looking at things for over the summer. You know, that's a lump sum that you could use, and it's an in and out time, you know, so it works for the Respite Coalition voucher.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. Questions about the voucher?
And so that can be family arranged.
Yes,
So,
that do you want. Now they do if you click on their information, they do not allow a sibling. So let's say your child is a college student and needs to watch their younger sibling and they live at the house permanently, but they have a dorm address. We've seen that denied.
okay.
So the sibling, because of the permanent address being at the same house as the individual, they have not allowed us to use the voucher on that. But if it's a sibling that has a different address, you can use that for the voucher. And yet again, family arranged. So you don't have to go through background checks and do all the hoops that you would have to do for a waiver. Respite.
Okay. Awesome.
Wow. The other category that recently I have just been tuned into is the ABC Special Needs Voucher. Guys, this is based on income. However, they have raised some of the income guidelines so that some families can utilize the service that probably 5 years ago wouldn't be able to. Okay, so I encourage you, if you are a single family income, look at those guidelines. The ABC voucher traditionally, it is through Department of Social Services, DSS, but it has been traditionally for lower income families in order for them to work or go to school, better their life, and also pay the bills. So we have a special needs ABC voucher. They've now streamlined it. So it's the same application and it goes to the same office. However, there is a portion that your case manager fills out that says, you know, they're DDSN eligible, and the case manager can actually even send it in for you. And there's two ways that you can do the ABC voucher. You can do a daycare setting if you can find one that accepts that ABC voucher. And depending on how much you make a month, there might be a small copay, you know, per week, something like that. So it's not 100% free unless you're, you know, meeting very low standards, income standards. But you could find a daycare if your child is that age and can benefit from that. Or you can use the Friends and Families program. And that's when you self-arrange your neighbor, your friend, your whoever it is that's watching your child, and they can access the special needs voucher through ABC.
And I may have missed this, but with the ABC voucher, like, is there a time limit on it? Is there like what types of restrictions on time? So like you mentioned daycare. I mean, is that for the whole year or is that just for?
They will cover summer months as well if you're working or in school as a parent. And if both parents are working or one parent's working and one is in school, you just have to justify that you're not sitting at home sending your child to daycare.
Right.
So that's the thought behind that. And it's not going to be for everybody because there are some folks that are not going to meet those guidelines, but I encourage you just to look to see if you've got, you know, that piece there going, because I think it's something that we forget about. And it is that continual need, you know, it will meet that continual need for childcare. You know, it's going to be ongoing as long as you're meeting those criteria. Now, I do not think it goes over 18. I think it shuts down at 18. So that is the only limitation there as far as that goes with age and then the income.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
But just for an example, so if you're a single parent plus one, on the guidance, you can make, I want to say like $3,700 a month on a paycheck. Really? So that's a 2-family household. And your copay is $20 a week
for childcare.
So,
That's
you know, I
amazing.
mean, it's a sliding scale that they put in
Sure.
now, which I really like. So, you know, just take a look at it because I think it's something that we probably don't think about a lot of times. You know, the other things, the after school programs at elementary schools, guys, you know, just don't assume that they're
Mhm,
not going to take your child, you know,
mhm.
ask. You know, how tuned in are they? Is it, you know, is it that you know, you can send a caregiver if you're on the waiver? Can you send someone in to assist? You know, those programs after school are usually really affordable. I know that our programs will accept anybody at the elementary level in their after school, as long, you know, I think that the behavior, you know, piece, that when there's some aggression and things like that, there might be the need to look at some different programming and stuff. But other than that, I feel like that they've, you know, the ones that I've seen here have been really accepting. And I, you know, I've seen families, you know, really hesitate, like, I just know they won't. You just ask, you know, and
Yeah,
what can we do to put in more support in there during that time? You know, what can we put in place? So
sure.
as an extra layer of support during that time. So the
Wow.
last thing, guys, that I put as a link that Sophia is going to give to you is the ABCs of respite. And it is a just all inclusive guide of all kinds of things: how to hire, where to look, questions to ask, things to monitor, you know, red flags that you might see, you know, because safety is so, so important when it comes to our guys. You know, so I think that that is a very helpful guide if you're just, you know, kind of getting into this and trying to think through, you know, what is it that, you know, my babysitter needs from me in order to make sure that it's successful, you know, because if you can make that success happen, then people are going to be more apt to do it. You know, a lot of families leave an all about me sheet. You know, if you know what, you know, if your child isn't talking with words yet, you know, when he does this or that, what does that typically mean? You know, putting
Yeah,
in some of those things in order to support that caregiver, whoever it may be, is always a
absolutely.
good idea.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Becky, you are a godsend. Thank you so,
Oh,
so much.
I
This has
love
been
to share
so
and
informative.
help as much as I can. So feel free. My number and name is out there. If you guys don't have to be, you know, ask me anything about case management, you don't have to be with the art. It's just a matter of educating. It really is. And just getting the word out there about services available.
Absolutely. Guys, I'm going to put all that information that Becky just gave us in the comment section. I'm going to include all the links to the guides that she referred to. So just give me just a little bit of time, but we will put all of that in the comment section for the Facebook Live. Becky, thank you. We love you and just
Welcome.
thank you so
Welcome.
much.
Have a
And
great night, guys. Stay
yeah,
safe.
guys, y'all take care. Have a great rest of your week and we'll see you soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.